Hello and welcome, detectorists, treasure hunters, friends, history hunters. It's that time of evening where we have our special guest. In point of fact, this special guest is my best detecting buddy. Yeah, we're out there finding that history up in Lancashire. But he spent a bit of time in South Africa looking at the nugget history, or trying to find nuggets, and also learning about the history of South Africa and Johannesburg. So we're going to have some interesting insight to the development of South Africa, and let's listen to his knowledge of history that he's found out over there on his nugget hunting trips. Let's bring my mate Michael Jackson. Where is he? Hey, Michael, welcome, pal. My best buddy.
How are you?
Buddy.
So good to see you, my friend.
So you've been out in Johannesburg for 38 years and learning the history out there. So what did you find out?
Well, I spent a long time out there. Primarily, I'm a Lancashire lad, now living back here in the UK, which is, of course, where I met you recently. And I was out in South Africa, got very interested in the old history of the place. And the shot that you're looking at behind me really is somewhere over here. Those are the Barberton Mountains out in the east of South Africa, very near the Kruger National Park. And I bought a holiday house out there because there was some old gold mining activity up in those mountains behind me up there. Oh. And in fact, a chap, 1884, when they discovered gold in this region, even predating Johannesburg, there was an itinerant Yorkshireman called Edwin Bray who'd been a lead miner in Yorkshire, got a bit fed up with the cold weather. And he took the 40-day trip, as it was, to go exploring out in these mountains behind me. And he stumbled right at the top of one of those mountains at the back up there onto what's become known as the Sheba gold mine, the richest gold mine in the world. And I had a holiday home very close to it, out in the bush, out in those wild mountains, in a little town called Barberton, which was the site of a monster gold rush in the 1880s when Edwin Bray had discovered what he called the Sheba mine. And in fact, I can give you an idea of what that looked like, because I've actually got, would you believe, a photograph of some of the original gold that he pulled out of that mine. Let me just bring it up and show you on screen. This is a lump of gold. Let me get out of the way of that. That's a lump of gold full of rock. That's how rich the rock was. And this came out of the main safe in the Sheba mine, which is still working to this day. But that was one of the original lumps that Edwin Bray and his team pulled out in the 1880s. It was described as being gold encased in rock rather than rock with a bit of gold in it. And it was the richest gold mine they'd ever seen. Shares went overnight on the London Stock Exchange once news of it hit England. A £1 share in 1884 started selling for £140 overnight. And the bottom of that mine looks a bit like this. It was an open cast mine. They went in from a top of the hill, dug it all out by hand, and somewhere in the bottom all there is where the gold started being discovered in huge quantities. And as I say, that was kind of the site of the richest gold mine in the world. These were the kind of people that were up there in those days. And what I was very keen to do was going to go and follow what was going on and start using a detector that I bought. I got myself into an 800 and went up there with a whole bunch of mates. And we went around digging to see what we could find, looking in the old mines. That's an interesting one. This is an old pistol, maybe could be World War II. We don't know. It was still in its original holster that we pulled out on one of the digs that we had. And we really got into it in a big way. But, we were starting to look for mine shafts like this and going into them. But a lot in those days, in the mining itself, was all what they called alluvial rather than this deep scale stuff. And that meant they go and look in the streams and in the rivers to see what we could find. I mean, we pulled out coinage. It's not a very good photograph there. That's a 1945 George threepence from South Africa. Oh, so a little bit of silver came out from the ground as well. But we were looking for all sorts of bits and pieces, having a dig around, seeing what we could find. And, for the most part, looking in the rivers and streams, working with the 800 was quite a good thing. And here for you is, I want to just get the camera focused on that. I had this set in a bit of platinum for my wife, but there's a gold nugget for you, a genuine South African gold nugget that's come out. About the size of a fingernail, if you look at it by comparison, probably about the size of 2 fingernails, to be honest. Beautiful piece of, I had it set in platinum, obviously, for the wife's necklace. I just thought it was quite a good thing to pull out. So coins, old guns, bits and pieces. I mean, you can see why I got very hooked on it. And up there, the ground's quite hard. It's not as soft as it is digging here in the UK. And so you always need a digger to go and help you. And I've used my son-in-law, I've used mates, and I used to grade them. They got a badge, they qualified for a basic badge, a bronze, a silver, and a gold. But most people gave up by bronze because I was detecting and they were digging for me. And it was always great fun, but it was kind of a very hard, arduous thing, climbing up and down those mountains. So, having moved back to the UK, which is where I cut my teeth on detecting in South Africa, I was quite privileged, John, to meet up with you. And, where we live in Lancashire now, I'm a Lancashire lad by birth. Where we live, I found you doing some old history stuff at an old hall, which is very close to where I live up in Lancashire. And it was, I watched you filming and I went over to you and I said, oh, what the hell's going on? And you explained that you were a detectorist. And it was like, oh, my God, what a match. Because I've been looking since I got back to the UK for somebody to go with. So I went and stalked you on your YouTube channel. And I went out to look at old John's detecting and John's hammered sites and whatever on YouTube to see what it was that you were up to. And when we made contact again after that, and you said, come on out with me, let's go metal detecting here in Lancashire, I was only too thrilled to get out there and start having some fun with you. And it's been amazing because you've taught me one hell of a lot. I know more about my machine now than I did from all those years back here in South Africa, wandering around and fossicking around in streams and rivers and old mine shafts and those kind of things. And it's really thanks to you that I've learned all the hints and tips that you've taught me. And I'm amazed as to what we've been finding on the trips that we go out and do as well,
Yeah, we're finding all sorts, aren't we? And it's continuing all the time. We've got videos of me and you finding all sorts of fantastic history, coins and artifacts, and it's just always a blast when we're going out. And
you're a bit like me. I think it's the history of the stuff, isn't it? Yeah. It's kind of amazing to me that people look at metal detectorists in a strange way, because some people don't think it's that great. Some people think it's just weird. Some people think we're nerds. I think it's one of the best hobbies that people could have. And you don't have to be a rocket scientist to get out there and do it. You just need some reasonably good equipment. You spend a few £100 getting it all together, and you've got the contacts for that. If anyone's watching this and wants to know where to get the best equipment from, John's got dealer contacts all over the country in the UK, and you get discounts as well when you go and get the stuff via his dealers. But I think that, what you love, John, is what I love, the history, the archaeology of it. And it's always great pulling out coins. I'm amazed about how many coins come out of the fields in Lancashire, where we've been mainly detecting, although up in Boroughbridge in Yorkshire as well, where I've been privileged to go with you, there's been some amazing finds up there too. And I've watched you pulling out Queen Elizabeth I silver threepences and sixpences. I've found about 8 silver coins since I've been detecting with you on the days.
The first damage yet, haven't you, mate? But we'll get you there. We'll get you there. Don't you worry.
No, it's coming. I'm looking forward to my first hammered at some point if I'm ever that privileged and lucky.
Don't worry. Yeah.
But they call you John Hammered Bradbury because I think you find hammered coins like most people find, I don't know, litter on the ground. It's just amazing what you do. But as I say, I've been privileged to do this because of all the stuff that you've taught me as well,
Yeah, well, we've got a long way to go and a lot more interesting finds to get to. Have you got any sort of funny stories in South Africa then, Michael, to tell us?
Well, I think that, one of the things up in these mountains on the picture that you can see behind me out there, it's pretty wild out there. The amount of human beings per square kilometer is minuscule. So when we're out there and we go up and camp on top of the mountains, there's old ghost towns up there, a town called Eureka. We've camped at that town, haunted as hell. I mean, you sit around that campfire at night. There is just you and the people that you're with. And, there is one thing that's a little bit scary. There's a load of illegal mining going on in South Africa now. And this area, this Barberton area, which was a huge geological fault, if you will. There's 2 theories about it. One theory says underneath this huge basin in the middle of Africa there, it's a giant granite pluton that's pushed up, and it pushed out all the gold in the rings surrounding it. And the other theory is that it's a meteorite strike, and nobody really knows which one of those is true. But they do know that in the area, there's a lot of what you call black basalt, a very hard, black, very dense rock. And when you look at moon rock, and I've been privileged to touch a piece of moon rock over in the States on my job that I did in the States a couple of years ago, it is effectively black basalt. And they say that when the Earth was forming and all this activity was going on, and all this behind me was under the ocean, when the oceans kind of filled up the planet, but all the volcanic activity and stuff that went on may well have caused fissures to come up the ground, and it brought all the gold together. There's a green stone that you find in these hills called, and it's known as Barbertonian greenstone. They even have a copy of it and a sample of it in the National History Museum in London. It's a very special stone. You only find it in 3 places: one in California in America, one in Barberton, where it was first discovered here in South Africa, and the other one is in Alaska. And whenever you find that Barbertonian greenstone, as they call it, mixed with quartz, there is gold in it. And that's what drove all these people in. But even today, you know, the mining still goes on. There's still proper full-scale mining. But as you can imagine, in these areas, all the streams, all the rivers were absolutely full of gold. And there's illegal miners everywhere. And they're armed and they're dangerous. So the people that I go detecting with out here always carry their own weapons to make sure that if anyone attacks us, we can defend ourselves. Although the chances of bumping into them, they'll probably see you coming and run a long time before you see them, kind of thing. And you know, we've been working in the valleys and the crevices and the hilltops up above there in these mountains behind me. And at nighttime, you can see little flickering lights as these guys are digging away at nighttime. And it can be a little bit scary. So weird stories. I mean, I had a haunted house up in Barberton, which was absolutely amazing. There was the story of an old miner that used to walk through the house from the back door to the front door at about 3 o'clock in the morning. First couple of times it happened to me, and I was at the house with a couple of mates. Everyone was terrified. We all thought we were being burgled. You could hear the back door open, footsteps all the way through in this wooden framed house that we were in. And then the front door opened and closed, and whatever it was walked through the house. And we started getting used to that eventually. It was a very, very weird thing. But this place is steeped in history, of course, and it's just, you know, it's absolutely magnificent. In 1884, it took 40 days for news of the gold strikes here to reach the London Stock Exchange, as I say, when the Edwin Bray Sheba mine shares went through the roof. And I was looking at an auction today on the sale room, looking at stuff. I still look for what they call the Old Transvaal in South Africa, because occasionally stuff on Barberton comes up. And funny enough, on the saleroom.com, one of the auction sites here in Britain, there were about 25 different share certificates from all these mines that were dotted around the area. Most of them were terrible. People pegged a claim and they went and dug it. And of course, they lost everything because the gold was patchy. It was in certain parts. If you found a rich vein, you were in. But for every rich vein, there were others that were just little pieces of dust or whatever it would have been. And people lost a hell of a lot of money out there in the gold rush. There were some amazing stories out there. In the town of Barberton itself, they used to have a prostitute by the name of Cockney Liz who came out from London. And they had a billiard table in the pub in this old town in 1884. And she used to auction herself every night to the highest bidder. And one chap, eventually got so drunk, apparently he paid £501 shares in the Sheba mine for her, for the night with her, was so drunk he fell asleep before he could actually consummate the deal, shall we say, and she kept the shares and would never give him back. And of course, when he sold her, when he exchanged the 500 face value pound shares, he didn't know they were worth at the time £140 each. So that was a very expensive night of fun that never happened for him.
Whoa.
And there's tales like that all over Barberton. You know, it's just, it's an amazing place to be. But it's also very cool being back
also,
here.
I think dangerous as well, Michael, because I bet there were some people got killed and all and died out there, you know.
Oh, God, look, if you got bitten by a snake out there in those mountains, you were buggered. You know, there was no snake bite kits. There was nothing. I mean, Joburg didn't exist when Barberton was discovered. Joburg really came up in about 1888. And most of the miners left this area, this Barberton ring, which is very near the Kruger Park in South Africa, just at the south of the Kruger Park. Many of them just picked up their wheelbarrows and they walked to the Witwatersrand, as they called it, where Johannesberg ultimately got founded 4 years after the gold strikes here. and they just picked up and left. And effectively, to this day, Barberton remains mostly a ghost town. Although, as I say, one or two of the very biggest mines are still operating, like the Sheba mine. They reckon has got deposits in there for another 150 years. And it's still today to one of the richest gold mines in the world. And it's in the middle of nowhere. You wouldn't. It's somewhere behind me on this photograph, and you wouldn't be able to tell me. I know exactly where it is, but it's right on top of a mountain, and it's almost impossible to get to. But it's weird. So yeah,
is there
an amazing part of the world.
Sorry. Is there any other type of material or any type of gemstones or anything else that they're digging out there? They're not in Johannesburg.
Everything you can think of. There's all kinds of stuff. There's no diamonds here, but gemstones. There's all kinds, from everything that you can think of is pretty much found, because it's this huge geological area. One of the biggest things they had, because over the far mountains behind me at the back is the kingdom of Swaziland, now known as Eswatini. And at one stage, they discovered one of the biggest lead mines in the world on the other side of those mountains. Now, deep in that valley. Where am I looking? Behind me at the bottom down there is the small town of Barberton, right? They ran a 26-mile cable car system to bring the lead over the mountains and get it into Barberton, where it could be worked on and refined at that level. And that cable car is still there. It's just rusted and fallen away from the 1890s. It's just, the cableways still swing, and the old big trays that the cable car carried across, these huge mine skips, if you will, still swing in the wind until they fall over, and if there's no one in the forest to hear them, you won't know that they've collapsed. But it's amazing out there. Some really, really cool stuff. You can see why any detectorist would love to be out there, right?
Yeah, well, yeah, hunting for the old gold nuggets for definite. That's but but it's hard going, like you said, hard digging and hard going, and you could be trying to find nuggets that that really sparsely around. That's
that one came out of a riverbed, by the way, to give you an idea.
All right.
As it was pure out of the riverbed, and that's a hell of a find when you find a nugget that size.
Did you find it with a metal detector or just eyes only?
With the 800.
With the 800, yeah, okay.
Yeah, and because obviously it's waterproof. So when you're walking up a path and you swing over a river, and we hit the target. I can't even remember what the numbers were on the 800 when it came up, but I know it was a very exciting day. It was take your clothes off and run through the stream naked kind of experience. Lots of fun. Yeah. I've told you I'll do the same if we ever find a sovereign in Lancashire.
Yes.
And you can put that on YouTube, John. I don't mind at all. It's like if I pull out a sovereign somewhere in Lancashire,
the sovereign is running naked through the farm.
That's it. If you ever hear of a fat guy being caught by a farmer running naked through the farm, yelling "Gold, gold!" That's why.
Yeah, I know the feeling. I've heard it a few times. But maybe one day we'll both find it, and I think you concentrate on the first hammered and then the gold after.
But I was excited when the first coins started coming out when I went out detecting with you for the first few times.
I know.
I remember saying to you, I'd be happy if I found a coin, and you were like, "Oh, we're going to find coin, don't worry." Yeah. And it was like half an hour in, boom, there it was, and it was like, "Yes, I can stop now for the day." It was amazing.
When you found your first silver, I think you got excited as well, didn't you?
Well, you remember well. I think I found 3 silvers in one hole, which was at the bottom of a stile. It was just absolutely remarkable. And the young Victoria on one of them, which is just, to this day, it's still my favorite coin. I don't know why. I just think it's in reasonably good condition. But what else have we found? A cartwheel penny, right? I was reading about on some other site somewhere. A cartwheel penny came up for discussion. I believe there's a cartwheel 2 penny as well, which is even more rare. I'd like to find one of those.
Oh yeah, Well, you found the first silver was the 1914 sixpence, wasn't it? That's right in the First World War, which is an exciting.
I know. I just keep thinking about the people who lose those coins, or lost them originally back then. It's like, my God, a sixpence or a shilling was worth a lot of money back then. It's a remarkable thing. But on the last trip when I was out with you, John, we pulled out those lead seals.
Yes.
I've been washing mine. It's on my table downstairs to look at. Beautiful little lead seal, again about the size of your thumbnail, and it had writing on it. And the writing is Henry Tate and Sons, Liverpool, So I went and did a little bit of research on that. They're 1896, and Henry Tate was the founder of Tate and Lyle Sugar Company. And they only did those seals in 1896. So I've actually dated it to that right now. And that's what I love doing, is looking up the history, like you do. You're a great history buff, you know.
Yeah, well, I've found quite a lot of them, you know, in the same field, these fields where we're going to go and where we've been. There's a lot of those Tates.
I don't know why they had bags of sugar in the farmers' fields, though. That kind of intrigues me.
Tate and Lyle sugars. Would you believe that? That's fantastic.
I know, from 1896. But the other thing that I found interesting was that, you know, most detectorists in the UK will be digging up buttons in fields. And I kept saying to you at one point, I can't believe, A, how many coins we find, mainly along old footpaths. I grant you that, because you know where to go. 35 years of experience, John, you know where to go, right? But yes. Mainly along the old footpaths, but that we keep digging up a lot of military buttons. And it was one of your colleagues up in Boroughbridge that told me the answer to that, which was at the end of World War II, when everyone got demobbed from the army, they had all these uniforms and didn't know what to do with them. And so what they did was they were largely made of hemp, those old World War II uniforms. They didn't even bother pulling the buttons off them. They mulched them, and they gave the mulch to farmers to put on their fields. And that's why to this day the hemp has gone, but the buttons have survived. And I wonder, John, as well, if whether the odd penny that we turn up, or the odd threepence or whatever with a World War I date on it or a World War II date on it might well have something to do with the fact that it might have been in the pocket of a military uniform.
Yeah.
I mean, I find that all fascinating. You know, just the history of all of this is just remarkable.
It's fascinating how, as time went by, how people have walked that land before, lost things, and some valuable things.
It's incredible, absolutely incredible. But you know, that's why I like going out with you, because you know you're a detectorist, but a treasure hunter as well as a history buff, and I love that, because every time we go out, we have some really good fun.
To life. That's what we do, pal. Bring all
really does come to life, you know.
And educate people. And that's what we try to do. So anyway, we are off tomorrow, aren't we, pal? We're off tomorrow detecting.
We are tomorrow morning. The weather's good after all the snow. I hope it's not too muddy out in those fields.
It's been brilliant having you on, Michael, my mate. I'm sure we'll be able to do some more chats of further historical information of your exploits.
I'd love to.
And I'm going to be seeing you tomorrow morning. And thanks a lot for that. And we'll
catch you. What a pleasure. Thank you for everything, John.
Yep. Catch you later, pal.
And don't forget, subscribe to this channel if you haven't done so already. Do it now.
Thanks for the plug, and see you tomorrow, pal. Well, that was my best mate, one of my detecting buddies, Michael Jackson. We're off on his detecting trolleys tomorrow, and I'm with my other mate as well, Stuart from Spinner Disc Metal Detectors, hunting that elusive history. One thing's for certain, we'll have some good fun trying. Well, thank you very much for watching, guys. Hope you found that interesting about South Africa and history that surrounds South Africa and gold nugget hunting. I'm sure Michael will be digging out some more history of South Africa and other endeavors at a later point. So thank you very much for joining us, and hope you can subscribe to the channel, and catch you maybe next week when we might have another guest on. Thanks, and